Well, welcome back again this week. I guess I have to say something about Obama and his speech last week relative to immigration. It's enough to make anybody a little bit irritated. One of the things that I noticed in the Wall Street Journal was a number of tables that shed some light on this. For instance, one table here says that the estimated number of illegal immigrants in the United States is somewhere between 10 and 12.5 million. If you talk to the people in the retired Border Patrol organizations, they say it's probably as high as 30 million. And we'll get into that a little bit more as to the ramifications of that. The table right next to it is interesting because it shows that 61% of the illegal immigrants have been here 10 years or more. So think about that in relationship to the numbers of how many people will be granted amnesty. I don't care what label you put on it. That's basically what you're talking about. The interesting thing about it is that the people who've been here illegally longest, in other words, over 5 years, will be given this new status. Now, in other words, what you're saying is the people who've been disobeying the law, breaking the law the longest, will reap the reward. It's sort of like saying, well, you know, this is, instead of 3 times you're out relative to prison, it's sort of 3 times and you're in relative to immigration and actually legalizing migration of millions of people crossing our borders. Now you see, these are just the immigrants from south of the border. This doesn't throw in a lot of the other immigrants that nobody ever talks about, that have legal status. The hundreds of thousands of people that we have flown in from other countries who have been refugees from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, etc., etc., the Hmong, so on and so forth. These people have been flown in and subsidized by tax money. They didn't cross the southern border. They didn't cross the northern border, which is also a problem. They were flown in here with semi-legal, at least legal status, and being subsidized thanks to your tax money. They never bring those people into these figures and how that is going to pan out. Now, the thing is, it's sort of like if somebody moves into your house and they're unwanted guests. They just came in through the side window and they're starting to sit down at your table. They're starting to occupy your guest room. Oh yeah, they take out the garbage for you and they sweep off the sidewalk and that sort of thing, but they're unwanted guests. And someone else comes along and says, well, now you have to grant them legal status. They can stay in your home for the rest of your life. Now, that may seem to be a bad analogy. And yet when you take a look at the overall aspect of what's happening to our country and our society, it does fit. What is the most basic unit of government? People will say, well, it's City Hall, or it's the county. That's not true, ladies and gentlemen. And it's part of the problem that we see in restructuring the American society, because the basic unit of our society is the family. Now, some libertarians would say, no, it's the individual. But I'm sorry, the individual is not any aspect of government. Government is the involvement of more than one individual. And that basic unit of government is the family. And what we see going on in this country is the basic breaking down of that unit in society through a number of different things. Homosexual agenda, all these various things fit into that pattern of breaking down the family. If you study communism, you know that one of the main things they want to do is to destroy the family unit, because the family comes in between them and us. The family there's loyalty to the family. They do not want any loyalty other than to the state. That's why they also are against religion. They want nothing to come between the individual and the state, whether it's family, whether it's church, whatever it is. And what we are witnessing in our country, whether it's immigration or anything else, is this basic breaking down of society, the changing of society, even the language. The more we adopt Spanish as a language, the less we have English. And yet English is the basic language we use in our jurisprudence, in our communication, and everything else. Language can mean a lot relative to how you think. For instance, one individual pointed out the other day to me that if you've got a territory, let's say Alsace-Lorraine, between France and Germany, and the Germans came in and said, okay, everybody now has to speak German. Don't you think that that would have a bearing on how the people there thought as to what they belong to, how they judge things and everything else? Of course. And that's what's happening to our country. The more people we adopt into our country that do not speak our language, the more it changes the whole atmosphere of how we think and how we go forward, etc. We're even producing a video here. The overview of America everybody's seen. We'll release in a few weeks that brings Spanish into the equation. We're going to have a Spanish overview, if you will. I have mixed reaction about it because on one hand I think it's a good thing to use in the Hispanic community. On the other hand, aren't we catering to what they're trying to do? It's a catch-22, but we have to do something. At any rate, those are some of the problems that kind of beset me. Here's another one is out of the Financial Times. Now this is a map of the labor force, percentage-wise, in various states of illegal individuals in the labor force. And if you take a look at down through here between California, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas, it's plus or minus 10%. Plus or minus 10% of the employed individuals in those states are illegal immigrants. That's astonishing. And then, of course, you've got, even in Florida. So you've got these things all over the country, this problem. But what does this do in relationship to society? Who do these individuals displace? If we have unemployment in our country, and yet we keep allowing these people to come in and be employed, they have to displace somebody else, don't they? The people they displace primarily is the black community. So that the black community's unemployment is way out of whack as a result. That is something else that's shaking up our society. And it's very dangerous for our future. Now, I'll make a prediction here. I predict that the Republicans, whatever they do to offset what Obama has done, will amount to a hill of beans. They'll go through all sorts of things, making it look as though they're doing something, particularly such things as suing that business in court. How many years does that take? How many years can that get bogged down? And when you take a look at the courts, does anybody really believe that the court system in our country today will do anything about it? Will issue favorable edicts and decisions and so on and so forth? I'm not going to put any money on it. I think that and the other thing is this about the Republican leadership. Let's be very, very candid. The Republican leadership does not want to stop illegal immigration. Why do I say that? Because the Republican leadership is involved in doing two things that are interrelated, and that is supporting the free trade agreements. These free trade agreements are merger, particularly the one called NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Area. That set the stage for the North American Union. Now, these Republican leaders support the North American Union, which doesn't want us to have any borders. Now, if they don't want to have any borders in a North American Union, why would they be trying to stop illegal immigration today? Because the end will not be illegal immigration, it'll be just open immigration, completely legal, no borders whatsoever. So don't tell me on one hand you're against illegal immigration. On the other hand, support things that are going to open up the floodgates with no border whatsoever. It's a lie. It's illegal. They are doing things to fool the American people as if they are the opposition. The hierarchy of the Republican Party is no more the opposition to the hierarchy of the Democratic Party than a Nazi is to a communist. Pardon me using that analogy, but we're not very far off when you really look at the end result of all these things. One other thing, and we're running out of time very quickly, but I have in my hand, and I'll probably use this next week, an email from the White House that shows that the White House and the Chinese are actually lying to the people about who supports what when it comes to free trade in the Pacific. And I think you'll find this is a very revealing segment when we do it next week, because we're just, frankly, out of time this time. I think you'll see the duplicity of these individuals that will be quite astonishing. Until then, I'll see you then.